Look at that, YouTube. I can't find the hole. The idea for this video came from something I seen on Facebook. Somebody had asked me where I got this charging handle from. And the wheels started spinning right away because most of us know that this actually isn't a charging handle. And I thought, you know what? We're just going to explain the entire M17 in one go. This also explains the operation of the Milsig K-Series, the Milsig Paradigm Pro, and essentially what blow forward actually means. So here is the M17 half assembled. Everything is here except for the other half of the case. Okay, we're going to come in a little bit closer and I'm going to explain all of the components to you with my magnetic screwdriver. This is your heat core. This is also your heat core. This is an air chamber, kind of like a surge tank. It just holds an extra volume of air. This is your bolt guide pin. This is also your bolt. This is your bolt guide, the front part of your bolt. Your trigger, I don't know if you can see it underneath there, but there is your sear. This is your barrel nut that your barrel screws into. Your ball detent or ball stop or first strike stop. This is your optional bolt reset handle. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to snap my fingers, and a part of this marker is going to disappear. Okay. As you can see, I have removed my spring. This is just for demonstration purposes only because trying to wrestle this bolt forwards with the spring in is not fun. And I only have half the marker together, and I don't feel like chasing pieces across my workroom. Okay, so you may have noticed that when you air up your M17, you hear a click. Click. What that is the bolt coming forwards and resting on the sear. Why this is important. Okay, now remember, there's a spring here, okay? This is the blow forward system. As soon as you apply air to this marker, it is ready to go. There is no caulking required. It is not a caulking handle. We'll explain what this is for in a second. So I want you to pretend I have an air tank on here. It is pressurized to the appropriate air pressure. And this is now clicked forwards, like they all do. Click. Okay, and now for, you know what? We're going to take this one step further. Magazine! Okay, now that we have a magazine loaded in here, okay, we can all see, you know. So, we got your air tank in. The marker automatically charges itself, okay, because air comes through here, fills your reservoir, and then applies air pressure into the heat core. The air pressure in the heat core pushes the bolt forwards, but the bolt can't go forwards because it's resting on the sear, the trigger. Now, the minute you pull that trigger, boop, the bolt is going to come forwards, pick up a projectile off of the magazine, put it into the barrel, and at that exact point, the heat core becomes unsealed by the bolt, and air pressure blows down through the bolt, up against the back of the projectile and down the barrel. That's blow forwards. Now, this magic spring that's in here has just been compressed to, like, I don't know what, 3/4 of an inch? Something ridiculous like that. And now it has enough stored energy where it can now uncoil itself and recock for the next shot. So the bolt comes flying all the way back, hits your bumper, but wait, the spring has lost all of its energy, but the air pressure from the tank is still pushing, so click, it cocks and is ready for the next shot. One more time, air pressure forwards, which is my finger, pulls the trigger, boop, goes forward, fires, compresses the spring says I can't take this anymore, fires backwards, the heat core says but I'm still blowing air, cocked for the next shot. Every heat core functions like this. Now, why the bolt reset handle? The bolt reset handle is there in case you have some sort of screw up, like I've seen it happen once out of about probably 6,000 mag-fed shots where the follower will pop up out of the magazine, okay, and the heat core will get stuck forwards, or the bolt will get stuck forwards. What you can do is you can, hang on a sec, I need to fire another shot. What you can do is pull back on your bolt reset handle, and what that does is it helps the spring push the bolt back into the reset ready to go position, and of course we have air pressure applied, so it recocks itself. You might notice the pin in the top of the bolt, the silver pin. Okay, that pin interacts with a channel on the inside of the bolt reset handle, which we'll see in a minute. So that's the purpose of the bolt reset handle. Now, you can also have a problem, like I did in the video Valken M17 versus 10,000 paintballs, where you don't have enough air pressure supply. Yes, I did this, it was self-inflicted, but the marker was firing in auto, okay, but because I didn't have enough air pressure pushing forwards on the bolt, the bolt didn't have enough pressure behind it to fully compress the spring to reach that, and I don't know what the magic number is, but to reach that magic number where it had enough spring in it to push the bolt back to reset the process over and over again. What was happening was the bolt was getting kind of stuck somewhere around here, where it wasn't, like, the spring tension was fighting the air pressure, and it had reached like a perfect balance of not unsealing the heat core to allow air to go through, but not resetting for the next shot. Now, if you see my marker stall in this video, it's stalled in this position. If it would have stalled fully forwards, okay, which it can't, and I'll explain that in a second. If it would have stalled fully forwards, I would have had a massive air leak blowing out the end of the barrel, and you would have heard that in the video. If it would have stalled fully to the rear, you would have heard a massive air leak coming out of the heat core, which you didn't hear in the video. What had happened was this had reached an equilibrium where the spring was able to push backwards with the same amount of force that the heat core air pressure was pushing forwards on it, and it just kind of stalled the bolt right here. And I'd pull back on the heat core and let go without pushing this all the way forwards till it clicks like you're supposed to. Again, I did something I wasn't supposed to. And the marker would just fire again. Now, I was about to explain something. The bolt cannot get stuck forwards like this, because at this position, the inside of the bolt is out of the heat core and air is pushing this way. Now, if air is free flowing, there is no air pressure in the heat core, but the spring will be pushing back. So you're always going to have this come back to its reset position. That's how the blow forward system works, unless you get a busted first strike, or you get, like I said, the follower come up, or you have some sort of catastrophic failure that I'm not aware of, or somebody has pulled a funny and put something in your magazine that has now gotten up into the way of the cycling process. Easy peasy, don't sweat it. You pull back, and this isn't very easy to pull, okay, because you're fighting against a lot of air pressure. But you pull it back, and it resets the cycle, the bolt comes back forward, then you can remove your magazine, have a peekaboo at what's going on, and then get back to business. Okay, the next part. Okay, so here I have the heat core in one hand. You're probably not going to be able to see this, but the O-ring on the inside is black. I'm assuming this is made out of a different material, a different durometer, than what you guys have seen in your regular heat core O-rings. The orange ones I'm referring to. This is the factory O-ring. It has fired about 20,000 rounds in total now, and it does not leak. I have done nothing special to this O-ring or this marker. It just functions as advertised. The upgrade bolt, which everybody seems to be talking about in the new models. This one has the factory bolt ramp mod. If you're interested in getting exact measurements of this mod, let me know in the comments below, and I'll create a separate video where I interrogate this bolt with the micrometer or the caliper. And the bolt inside the back of the heat core, the one that seals, okay, I want you to imagine like you can see through this and see the little bolt that's inside of here right now. The bolt that goes in and pushes up against the heat core O-ring to seal it, it is actually ground down on a curve or a convex. Somebody has turned that bolt down. This is a specialized bolt. Previous mill-sigs just used a regular bolt with a hard 90-degree shoulder, and what would happen is the shoulder would catch on the heat core O-ring over time, ripping it and destroying it. So this is not your typical mill-sig bolt. I have not checked to see if it's compatible with the M series mill-sig. If that, again, something you want to see, let me know in the comments below, and I will start mixing and matching parts. Again, talking about the mill-sig M series, if you guys have one and you've had it apart, and you have one of these and you've had it apart, you'll notice that the bolt guide in the M17 kind of mirrors that of the mill-sig K series. Follow me here. The mill-sig K series was first gen. The mill-sig M series was second generation, and it had a one-piece barrel nut bolt guide, and there was only one way to install it, and the projectile will come up from the bottom. Now what that did was it gave, excuse me for a second here, it gave stability to the bolt as it travels. That pesky trigger. It gave stability to the bolt as it traveled backwards and forwards. The M series bolt guide barrel nut piece as the one piece. What they've done here is they've actually machined the housing. The housing has been machined, although I believe it's some type of plastic. They've machined it so that it can support the barrel as it, or they've machined it so that it can support the bolt as it travels to the barrel. Now, having done this, I can say that they haven't taken a step back with technology. They've actually taken a step forward, because whereas the M series has a one piece, it is metal end to end. This is plastic. Now, it's not just regular cheap plastic. This is a high density plastic. Now, I asked myself, okay, if I'm going to have something rubbing against my precious bolt, do I want it to be metal or do I want it to be plastic? If you've guessed plastic, you are correct, because plastic will not damage the bolt. The plastic itself will, how do you say, deteriorate or sacrifice itself before damaging the bolt. And plastic can be repaired quite easily if we know how to use epoxies, etc., etc. I'm not going to get into that. But plastic can easily be repaired. Okay, so we've gone through the operation of the blow forward system, how the bolt reset handle works, what the inside of the bolt looks like, the heat core. I'll quickly explain the heat core. Now, I'm going to try to block some of this off here. If you look at this, okay, and you're a Tippmann guy, this kind of looks like a power tube. It is not a power tube. It is much more sophisticated than a power tube. This is shaped the way it is for a reason. This here is your regulator body. This here is your safety blow-off. This is an air chamber, and this is an air tube. Well, why couldn't we just shrink this down in size and put this over here? The reason is volume. What this allows the marker to do is store an amount of volume of air, high pressure air, between shots. Now, you're thinking between shots and repetition. Yes, but also between shots and fully automatic. Now, if you again go back to my video where I only input 400 psi, the volume of air in here was correct, but the pressure was not. So I'm not going to get into the logistics of explaining the difference between volume and pressure, whereas if you increase volume, you lose pressure, where if you increase pressure, you lose volume. This is created in the exact shape that it needs to be to have the perfect balance between air pressure and air volume, so that when you pull the trigger, it uses just enough air to propel the projectile down the barrel, compress the spring on the bolt for the next shot, reset itself without wasting any more air than it has to. Clever. I probably wouldn't be able to design something like this. Now, the trigger mechanism. Oh, I came out of the hole again. Okay, when you're taking off your AR style hand grip, because yes, these do accept any AR-15 style hand grip, or so I've been told. This is not the factory hand grip. I bought this one at a yard sale. Yes, I bought this one at a yard sale. Okay, there's going to be a little, and it is on the right side of the marker. There is going to be a little spring and ball detent right down here. Do not lose that. If you lose this, you are going to be in a world of hurt. It's got a spring, boop, and a teeny tiny little ball. Teeny tiny little ball. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put this in my parts bin. Just like that. Okay. Handle off. Don't lose your balls. Then you're going to remove your fire selector switch. Okay. When I take mine apart, I always, for whatever reason, take it out in repetition. Like it's just a thing I do. You don't have to do it. It's just a thing I do. You can be like me if you want. I won't get upset. You know we're getting real when the tongue starts hanging out. Okay, my trigger mech. Nice and slow. I'm not even going to cut that bouncy part out, because you guys are probably going to have the same thing happen to you when you take your trigger mechanism apart. Yes, my trigger spring did fly out when I took this apart. No big deal. Some of the tiny little parts in here can be a super pain in the butt to work with. Okay. This is what the inside of my trigger mechanism looks apart. This is what the inside of my trigger mechanism looks like when it is taken apart. You will notice that it is extra greasy in here. That is because I lubed it up very well before we were going to fire 10,000 paintballs and then an additional 2. Okay. Fire selector lever. This is a nut that this nut sits right here. The fastener for your hand grip feeds up into that. Okay, so in repetition, now I apologize if this is too greasy, you guys can't see it. Let me know in the comments below if you need a better view and I will do this again. Okay, so when your bolt charges, you apply air pressure to your marker. You hear this thing come forwards and click. Okay, click. Now in the repetition setting, I want you to note the relationship of the back of the trigger right here, okay? You guys see that? So I'm going to, with my thumb, simulate action of the bolt. Hopefully not take a spring in the face. So we have charged and we're ready to fire. I am going to pull the trigger, and the sear is going to lift up on one side and fall down on the other, and the bolt is magically going to go pew, and then the bolt is going to come back and reset for the next shot. Okay, you see what's happening here, okay, is that the bolt it can't push forwards again. And that click is what you hear after every shot and repetition, right? When you hold the trigger back, pew, and then the bolt's going to come back and reset again, and you'll notice the silver piece on the trigger pushing forwards. Watch what happens to the silver piece on the trigger as I reset for the next shot and the sound it makes. Well, it was supposed to click. I apologize. I can't do that too many times. It really kills the thumb. Okay, so what happens when we put it on safe? I want you to see the relationship, okay, right in here. This relationship, when I turn the dial to safe and the back of the trigger, the same spot I asked you guys to pay attention to before. So we're going to turn this to safe. I can't pull it, and this is wobbling because I've obviously got it apart. And it can't fire at all while it's unsafe. So the marker charges, okay, but because I can't move the trigger, the silver piece right here can't lift up high enough to lift the sear. Okay, we're going to go to repetition or single shot. Okay, and now the back of the trigger can rise, allowing the trigger to rise, allowing the silver piece to rise, therefore lifting the front side of the sear and lowering the back side, and pew! Come back in, reset for the next shot. Okay, now what you guys have been waiting for. Full auto. Place it in full auto. Look at what happens. Okay, so pay attention to this silver part right here, okay, in relation to the back of the trigger right there. I don't know how well you can see this. Maybe you got to zoom it in, or maybe I have to do it again. But the gap is going to get a lot bigger. You see that gap? How it just got enormous? There's parts of this I want you to pay attention to as I'm cycling the trigger mechanism. I want you to pay attention to these roll pins here. Great. Magnetic screwdriver. Beautiful! Give me a sec. Smart. Crazy intelligent, but not that smart. Yep. Now I've done it. Okay. I want you guys to pay attention specifically to these two pins, because this is where the magic happens. This silver piece and the front side of this. Okay, so we're in fully automatic. I'm going to charge it, or the marker is pressurized, therefore pushing the sear forwards, and I'm going to make sure this doesn't come apart my face. Okay, I'm going to pull the trigger, the bolt, the trigger rises super high because it's in full auto, the bolt flies forwards, okay, presses down on this a little bit, oh, did you see that? Comes back, resets again, but wait, boom, 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 boom. Every time you hear that click, it's firing. Okay, now how is this possible? So if the trigger in repetition can only rise this high, watch those two double pins, okay? Watch how high it rises in full auto. It pushed those pins way up there. And what that does is it gives the sear less of a spot on the silver piece to grab onto. See that? comes forward, fires again. It actually pushes the pins up into the way, and there it goes. Back up here. I knew it was a matter of time. I hope you guys get the point of how this works. Okay, those 2 pins that I showed you are the magic. The 2 double pins. Without those 2 pins being there, okay, the full auto just wouldn't work. There's actually a curve out in the trigger to cup those pins and grab them and force them up a little bit. Now, you might be asking how. Well, for now, I'm just going to say it's magic. No, it's not. It's positioning of the sear. Properly positioned, and I've showed you, this thing will run all day. Now that is what the adjustment on the trigger is for, right here, is so that you can either raise or lower how far up and down these rolling pins go as it's firing. Forwards, comes back. I guess I should put the spring in. I could literally sit here all day, but I won't. Okay, so that's it. If you guys have liked this video, do me a favor, hit the like button. I would like you guys to please take a second to subscribe, because there's some really, really big stuff coming in the future. I don't want to spoil anything, but if you thought some of the stuff I've done in the past was kind of over the top, this is going to be on a completely different mountain. Thank you for watching. I had fun. I hope you guys had fun, and I'll see you again.